Hello class and welcome to Human Resource Management Chapter 1. In this lecture we're going to talk about business ethics. So let's get started. It's important to note that the HR department is the protector and the keeper of organizational ethics. At the end of the day, all ethical related problems, issues, and challenges that organization may face, they run through the HR department. To this extent, the HR department has developed policies and procedures and methods to deal with employee accountability and other aspects that help to keep the employee operating in an ethical framework. I want to take time to point out that there's a difference between legal compliance and ethics. So legal compliance is simply complying with the letter of the law. As we all can understand, sometimes the law in and of itself cannot be ethical. For example, we can look to slavery or a host of other laws that have been passed at some point in time, which clearly are unethical. Nonetheless, in general, our laws are there to protect people and are going in the right direction, and organizations are required to follow the law. However, ethics takes it a step above the law. Ethics is rooted in principles, the principles that the organization wants to adhere to. They want to project, they want people to believe in, they want employees, customers, clients, stakeholders to follow and understand that this is a value system of the organization. So to that, human resources may actually have policies and procedures that go further than the law, that are more conservative than the law, that are looking at the spirit of the law, but acting in accordance with something that's even greater than the law. So you'll see that organizations very commonly write codes of conduct, and they'll publish that information. These are guidelines informing employees how they should behave within the organization, what is acceptable behavior, what's not. It's important to also note that you can't legislate every single thing that goes on in an organization. It's impossible to determine that and to make sure that everything is accounted for. You can't write a law or a procedure to account for every possible eventuality that may take place with an employee, particularly when you have literally thousands of employees. So code of conducts are a set of principles and guidelines that help people understand the culture of what's right and wrong within the organization. HR also has policies regarding whistleblower protection. So if someone does violate the code of conduct or the law and is reported, that they protect the people who are reporting from any type of backlash or negative outcomes from their reporting. They also keep information confidential. They are responsible for doing investigations within the organization should there be some type of claim of inappropriate behavior. Some very common examples of where people make mistakes and they commit ethical violations are listed on this slide here. You can break them down into three different categories: compensation, employee relations, and staffing and equal employment. I'm not going to go through every single one of these. I would encourage you to pause the video and to take time to read each of these. But here are some common areas where people behave unethically. They misrepresent how many hours they worked on the job. So maybe they only worked 45 minutes, but they put an hour down on their timesheet. They deliberately add overtime to their pay schedules when they know they didn't work that much overtime. They may lie to other supervisors and coworkers on the job, stealing organizational assets and supplies that they know don't belong to them. Also, violating the law when it comes to EEO or equal employment opportunity regulations. These are all common areas where you'll find ethical misconduct taking place within an organization. So HR departments will put together an ethics program. This program typically consists of 4 components. One is what we discussed earlier, a written code of conduct, a written standards that the organization encourages everyone to abide by. If you look here, you'll see this is Dell Computer's code of conduct that they actually encourage employees to follow. It's a PDF of their code of conduct for Dell Computers, how we win. It's a very important statement here that Dell believes in winning with integrity. It means that they operate legally and ethically everywhere in everything they do. As a person who worked for Dell Computers, I can tell you that they do take this very seriously. Taking a quick look at the table of contents, you can see that the code of conduct covers a lot of different areas. A whole section dedicated to employees, another section dedicated to shareholders, another section dedicated to customers, and another section dedicated to partners in the community and other stakeholders. And if we go down this document, we'll begin to see even more about the policies and procedures and what's important to Dell. I'd like to pause here for a moment and tell you these are some of the principles that Dell operates by. We're honest, we're trustworthy, we treat others with respect, we are courageous, We use good judgment. We are responsible. And once again, you can't legislate everything that happens in an organization, but you can encourage principles. Here's the remaining. We always obey the law and Dell policies. We never compromise on integrity. Just say no. So if anything is inappropriate, if it looks wrong, just simply say no, and you'll never be held responsible or punished for doing so. We make good choices. We select our business partners carefully. If we have business partners that are trying to cause us to engage in something we know is inappropriate, we don't do business with those kinds of people. And we speak up. I find this one particularly interesting, so I want to take time to read it briefly. If you suspect someone, a team member, a leader, a business partner, a customer, is acting illegally or unethically, help us maintain our values and culture by reporting it immediately. Even if you have concerns about your own behavior, speak up as well. Admitting mistakes and taking action to correct them is a responsible thing to do. I think this is very telling of the type of culture that Dell Computers is trying to create. And you'll see similar statements like this at other major Fortune 500 organizations. And they're saying here, even if you think that your action may somehow be inappropriate or borderline unethical, that you should report yourself and then take the proper steps to correct it. And you won't be held responsible or punished because you did that. In fact, we'll look at you with a greater sense of respect. You'll see that written codes of ethics and standards are a very important part of the ethical program within HR. Also, employee training. So every year at Dell, other corporations, and even at E, we engage in employee training. We get trained every year on what's appropriate behavior, what's not appropriate. And we get quizzed off of that, and we have to maintain that certification on a yearly basis. The HR department also provides advice to employees on ethical situations. Many situations out there are gray. It's not easy to tell what's right or wrong. It's not exactly clear. When you're faced with a situation like that, you can go to the HR department to get advice. And lastly, confidential reporting of ethical problems. If you see someone engaging in something inappropriate or unethical, you should report that. And the HR department maintains a number of different ways for you to be able to report inappropriate or unethical behaviors. And many of those ways allow you to report it completely anonymous. Continuing on with the thought of business ethics, you can see there are a lot of areas within an organization where ethics apply. Staffing, training, labor relations, legal compliance, compensation, employee development, performance management, and HR policies. All these, on a very macro sense, come underneath HR's banner. To that extent, HR should train hiring managers and operational managers on what is ethical and what's not ethical so they could teach their staff and employees, while HR provides an overall umbrella of training to the overall organization. It's important to note that when an organization decides that it's not going to behave ethically, that there are real-world business consequences to that. For example, unethical organizations typically have lower job satisfaction, which means they have higher turnover, which hurts the organization's performance because they're losing good people, they're spending extra money to hire more people, and it takes those individuals longer to get started to become productive for the organization. If you have proper ethics, you'll reduce absenteeism, which means that people are going to want to be there. They're going to show up to work on time. You're going to have less tardiness and less people missing work. You have increased job commitment, higher job performance, and overall a continuation of ethical decision making. That wraps it up for ethics in this chapter. If there are any questions, please send me an email or a message, and I'll be happy to answer it. Thank you very much.
Some drops, let some